Jen, you like that? See? I'm a feminist.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love it.
Clear the air lanes for the big broadcast.
We're not professional podcasters.
Say what?
We barely know what we're doing,
It's funny because it's true.
but we have fun anyway.
I'm here to podcast.
Does everybody know what time it is?
We're going streaking! Yeah!
No, we're not. It's time for movies, pop culture, and more with the all-new Culture Cast, starting now.
I am the Gorehound,
I'm Nick.
And I'm Jen.
and we are the all-new Culture Cast, back with the latest edition. The next few podcasts are Kevin Smith themed. I should add, in honor of the Gorehound's birthday month, his chosen topic. So
we're sorry, Internet.
yes, suffer through for the Gorehound's happiness. Jen, how you doing today?
Oh, it's going well. Pretty cold out.
Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous out.
Yeah, it was very nice for a little while, and I was like, I should go get stamps, and then I didn't, and then I was driving home from work today, and I was like, I should get stamps, then I was like, I don't want to get out of my car because I won't get back in it, and then I have to live at the post office.
Some Chicagoland weather, man.
Yeah, this is Tom Skilling's fault.
Nick, what are we talking about tonight?
We are talking about the 1994 cult classic Clerks, directed by Kevin Smith. His first feature. Well, first theatrical feature. I think he had another movie before that. I'm not sure, but
Right.
it's what got him his name.
Let's start off.
What have you been watching?
Jen, start us off.
So it is Oscar death race season.
Yeah. There was just a big
and
award ceremony. Did you watch it?
The which one?
There was some award ceremony.
The SAG Awards, I think, just happened. No, I didn't watch them. I really only watch major awards, but
It's an award ceremony.
well, yeah, and I like award ceremonies, but like here's what I watch. I watch the Oscars, the Emmys. I watch the Globes. I don't watch the Grammys, boo. And then I watch the Tony Awards. So like the real award shows.
They all sound the same to me, but
No, they're different. But
I'm just an uneducated swine.
Thank you. I'm glad you're finally getting those messages I've been sending you. No, so anyway, so it's Oscar death race season, and I watch all of the movies, like all of the ones. So last night, my friend Mike and I went to the Chicago's Music Box Theater.
Oh, you go,
and
girl.
we saw a movie. Yeah, we saw a movie called Tony Erdmann.
Okay.
And if you're wondering, can you watch 2 hours and 42 minutes of a German comedy? The answer is no. No.
Pretty difficult.
German comedies are very difficult. You always hear that comedy doesn't translate well to other cultures, and you know what? Agreed. Because I watched this German comedy, which was about a father who's trying to connect with his daughter, who's like a business lady working on some important business deal. And it was so weird. There was a weird amount of nudity.
What was the name?
It was called Tony Erdmann.
Okay.
And there was a scene where a man masturbated onto a pastry.
Nice.
And then she ate it?
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff out there I think two people can do.
Kind of sets a tone for the movie. You're like, all right, that's what we're watching
Well,
right now.
It happens at like exactly the halfway point. Previous to this, like nobody had any sex at all, and then all of a sudden there's this like weirdly graphic scene of a man masturbating onto a pastry, and it's a tonal shift. It is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so 3-hour German comedy. Not the weirdest thing I've ever watched for the Oscars, but it is the most recent.
All right.
So would you recommend this movie?
Yeah.
No.
See, you
think
failed.
that-
You failed. No, wait, hold on. You should have said, you had the perfect opportunity to say 9.
Here's what I will say. I think it is important for people to see more like foreign movies because I think America and, the rest of the world too can become way too focused on like American cultural output. So, definitely you should make an effort to see more foreign movies, but this might not be the best starting point for most people.
Yeah, watching foreign movies makes you feel better about yourself. It's like going to a class and you're like, I learned something. I'm a better person now.
Like, people say we don't read enough. That's because we watch comedies in languages we already know.
That makes no sense.
Because then you have to read it. It's like, because they got the translation. The joke was very funny. I'm sorry you didn't understand it.
If it was funny, I would have understood it.
What'd you have?
9.
So how about you guys? What have you been watching? Nick?
I've been watching a spattering of a couple of things. I've recently discovered that my DVR is almost at capacity. So I'm like, I should probably clear this thing out and start watching this stuff. So I've been catching up on the latest season of Sherlock, which is just finished up airing. It's only 3 episodes long, but they're like 2-hour episodes or something. But so I've been going through that, and it's been okay. I mean, I've only 1 episode in, but I've been trying to catch up on other TV shows that I have like built up in there. In addition to my, we can go back if you recall, one of my New Year's resolutions was to read a book a month, at least a novel a month.
12 books in a year?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. You are...
It's really not that tough to do. But
I don't know. I'm trying to get through my one book that I started in November, and I'm just about to finish it. And I read quite a bit. Is the little train going to be able to do it after all?
But so I finished my first book, and I read. It was actually a Star Trek book, and only because I just felt like reading one. And it's a book called Star Trek Federation. It was okay. If you're a Star Trek fan, obviously.
Which you are.
It was written in. Which I am, yes. It was written in the early 90s, and the thing I took away the most from it was it centers on a event that's kind of important to Star Trek backstory, but said event wasn't really ever fleshed out in the Star Trek series. At that point, about a year after the book came out, one of the movies actually did flesh out that event in a very, very, very different way. So it's amusing for me to see it being done differently in the book and just, comparing and contrasting the 2 versions. So that was interesting. But I'm moving on to my next book, which is going to be my February book. I'm reading Anna Kendrick's Scrappy Little Nobody.
Oh, that's awesome. I was actually thinking about getting that for you for Christmas. Because actually she was actually in Chicago and she did a book signing for that. And I was gonna mention it.
I went to the book signing.
You what? Are you serious?
I went.
You saw her?
Yeah, it was so great. But unfortunately, she was only on stage for an hour, but she was adorable. Also, she's very tiny. Everyone in Hollywood is thin, and she is very thin.
The camera adds a foot.
The camera adds. I mean, she is very short on screen, but yeah, no, she definitely is even smaller in real life. But yeah. She was really cute and really adorable, and really quick on her feet with the jokes and stuff. Anyway, and I started her book. I haven't finished it yet, just because I've been reading other things. But yeah, no, she was so great.
Awesome.
So
I think you should definitely read it, and then we'll have a litlittle book club.
Oh my god!
I'm down. I'm about 50 pages or so into it, so that's a quick read. But it was going back to that when she made this that appearance, and I heard her randomly when I was driving to work on the radio, and when she said, "Oh, I'll be in Naperville on this day to do this book signing," I'm like, "Oh my god, that's so cool!" The first thing I did was look it up. I was trying to figure out okay, how can I do this? Because I'm a huge Anna Kendrick fan, as you may or may not know. I was immediately disappointed when I learned that it was just her talking, and then they give you a copy of the book that's pre-signed. So
Yes.
I was like, oh, so you don't actually get to go up and have her sign it in front of you. And like, I remember the website to buy the ticket even said things you should not expect. You will not meet Anna Kendrick. You will not have a picture with Anna Kendrick. Anna Kendrick would not sign your book. Like, it was like very specific.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's a chance where I could like meet the person or like say hi. That'd be one thing, but I didn't care that much. I was like,
No, let me explain to you why Anna Kendrick was not going to sign your book. Let me tell you.
I totally get why she
No.
signed it, but
Let me tell you the story. So I was there, we got very good seats, my friend and I, because I got there pretty soon after work. So we go to this book signing. I get good seats. She comes out on stage. She's got, just like everybody, they get a bottle of water when they're up there. She leaves, everybody starts breaking up and going to the or they're about to leave the auditorium. This guy from the audience goes up there, takes her water bottle, and then keeps it. And then later, while we were all in the, there was, it was held at a church, so that was kind of the auditorium. I mean, it was one of those very like modern churches that, has more of like an auditorium than like a sanctuary feel to it.
yeah.
And, so we're in what appears to be like, the foyer of a high school. Like, that's what it looked like. It didn't look like a church. And so we were hanging out like, because they had like a coffee shop, like a literal coffee shop and like a fireplace. It was very weird. Anyway, but we were kind of hanging out there for a few minutes and I saw the guy walking around with the water bottle showing his friends. And I was just like, oh my God, this is bananas. Like, you're literally stealing her water bottle. But you can't let that guy, go up to Anna Kendrick because he's definitely going to kidnap her.
That's fair. Yeah. I don't know. I probably would have stolen the water bottle.
See? And that's why none of us get to meet her.
Well, not to be weird, just for like the novelty of it.
Her tissue.
Mm-hmm. How do you think your wife would feel if she came in and was like, you know what, I'm going to throw away this gross old water bottle? And you were like, no, I can't. Anna Kendrick touched it with her body.
I think she'd be okay with it. I honestly do.
Okay, well, I'm going to see her next weekend and I'm going to ask her. So don't say anything to her. I'm going to ask her.
Okay.
All right.
She likes Anna Kendrick too.
I mean, but does she want her garbage in her house?
Well, okay, to be fair, I would probably keep it for like a day and then ultimately pitch it. I would not keep it forever and ever and ever.
I don't know.
Makes me feel better.
Because at the end of the day, it's a freaking water bottle. Who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, I would drink the water in it.
It's got a connection to a favorite celebrity. Just put it on the top of your bookshelf, and every now and then you look up and you're like, oh, yeah. I would.
Well, we found the 3 or 4 levels of crazy between the 3 of us here. All right, Gorehound, what have you been watching?
Not a
That's great. Anyway, moving on.
Not a whole lot. It's been a pretty stressful week. I find that I've been skipping out on Vikings because it's on a Wednesday night and I don't have time to sit down on. I've also been doing a lot of working out in the evening, so I don't have time. But I am looking forward to watching it this weekend. So the only thing that I watched this week is going to transition into the man crush of the week. Which is... Did you just hear that?
Yeah, was that your cat or something?
Were you doing that on purpose?
No, he just decided to come on in.
Also, I thought you were trying to insert the jingle there.
No, that was him saying, who's the man crush of the week?
Man crush.
Christoph Waltz is the man crush of the week because pretty much the only legit thing that I've watched this week has been comedians in cars getting coffee with Jerry Seinfeld. Mm-hmm. We watch it. She watches it quite frequently, and I I like it. It's pretty short, succinct, and it's not like your typical... Have you guys watched it?
I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like your typical show. It's different, and I like it. Yeah, he's not a comedian. I mean, he's funny, but he's not like a stand-up comedian.
So what's the deal with the movies?
Right.
Am I right, people? It's my terrible...
Do you think he's the Count from Sesame Street?
You know, if anyone would play the Count, he'd be boss at it.
He's fantastic, but he just was not a good fit for the show because he's very particular and quirky guy. And so while the episode it was actually on the lower end of the series spectrum, but it kind of just reminded me of how great of an actor he is, and I pretty much love everything that he's in. And one movie that I wanted to recommend that not many people know about is called Carnage. Have you guys heard or seen of it?
Mm-mm.
You know I wouldn't watch something called Carnage.
No, it's... Jen, you might like it. It's basically 4 people in a room. It's 2 couples. It's got John C. Reilly, Christoph Waltz, and 2 women, their respective wives. And basically one of their kids hits the other kid in the face with like a bat. And they try to like come to terms with this and saying, like, your kid hit our kid, you owe us money, but let's do this like in a respectable fashion and not like press any charges. And so at the beginning of the movie, they're all calm and they're like, okay, let's handle this formally. And by the end of it, it just gets crazy. And it's a really good movie. I would definitely recommend it. All right.
So tonight we're talking about the 1994 film Clerks. My God, I can't talk today. Starring kind of a group of nobodies.
Yeah, they weren't really in anything before this.
Or after, for that matter.
Right. They're kind of just part of this Kevin Smith clique that this movie really started.
Yeah, and even the actors in this movie, outside of Jason Mewes and Brian O'Halloran, none of the others appeared in any of the other View Askew, Kevin Smith, View Askew, Jay and Silent Bob films. So it's interesting that at least in that way for the people who are hardcore Jay and Silent Bob fans. But
just a disclaimer, I am.
The film centers on 2 slackers in the early 20s who work at side-by-side retail shops. One a kind of like a makeshift drugstore, and the other a video rental place. And there's sort of misadventure over a day period that they deal with, working with crazy customers, their love lives. The movie was shot on a very low budget. It was in black and white even. And it's kind of a crappy looking if you look at it now. But, I mean, considering how low budget it was, it's kind of excusable.
Yeah, this was his first movie. He had no budget. He pretty much self-financed this entire thing.
Yeah, I think he took out a bunch of loans or something like
he
that.
Maxed out credit cards on this. Like,
yeah,
it wasn't even a loan.
Like I remember him saying that he did it in like the worst possible way to make a movie. He's like, "Don't do this, people."
Right, but and he's definitely an exceptional case. Like, I would not recommend anybody do it this way, like he did, where you just spend like shit ton of money.
Yeah.
On production. But I mean, you wouldn't even need to do it that way today, because you could have shot everything, I could have shot this entire movie, like scene for scene, with my phone.
Yeah, it's true. There are things, it's very, very different now. But back then, this film like hit big when it first came out and really launched Kevin Smith's career. And it was part of the early 90s indie craze. Because independent movies weren't really a big thing. They were, but they didn't get mainstream success. But between the works of Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino, and to a certain extent Robert Rodriguez, those films really started becoming the mainstream and popular, which launched the big careers of those guys. So before we get more into the specifics, and later on I would like to talk a little bit briefly on the animated series and Clerks 2, which just briefly, but what do you guys think of Clerks?
Jen, why don't you start us off?
Okay, so I'm going to preface this by saying I had never watched Clerks, I was aware of it, but had never seen any of it. I think the only Kevin Smith movie I've ever seen, beyond watching this for the podcast, was Dogma, which I saw in high school, and remember like 3 things from.
So you never saw Chasing Amy?
No.
Okay.
No, I haven't seen, like I said, the only one I've ever seen is Dogma, and that was while I was in high school. So anyway, I watched Clerks, and I hated it so much. I hated it. I hated it on so many different levels. It was like weird and offensive. It was exactly designed to appeal to the 15-year-old boys. It was dumb. It clearly hated women. It hated gay people. It hated Asians. I was like, what is happening? Like, how is this a movie? And what it really hated was like plot or coherent storytelling. I don't understand how this has become a cult classic, except that, I think there's this certain like subset of people that just hate movies that have plots and think that movies without plots are somehow superior to movies with plots. But I'm not sure I understand it.
We'll get into that point in a few minutes. Not that I disagree with you. I think that warrants discussion.
Sure, absolutely. We'll come back to it. All right, Kyle, slobber on the movie.
I cannot remember when I first saw this. I know that I've seen it many times since, and I watch it quite frequently. Partly because I really like... this movie is all about conversations and script, and I don't know, as weird as it is, I really like talking. I really like a good script. I like different ideas that they present. The quotes, I think, just live on. Maybe like once a week I'm thinking to myself, I'm not even supposed to be here today. It makes me feel all warm inside, and also at the same time like at ease, because partially I've seen this many times. There isn't a whole lot that unveils itself in this movie with multiple viewings. It is what it is.
My thoughts on the movie: when I first seen it, I was in senior in high school or so, and during my college years, I really, really liked it. I enjoyed it because I thought it was silly, stupid, fun. I thought it was funny, and it just was like, it was up there for me. That said, when I tried to rewatch it with a friend about 8, 9, 10 years back, and I hadn't seen it in a while prior to that, I was watching it, and I was cringing through it.
How come?
Well, I think there's merit to it. I think there's still some interesting things that are done in it. But compared to other films and compared to where Kevin Smith went as a writer and a director, the film is so incredibly crude in its filmmaking, not in its humor or anything. Just in its filmmaking, which I guess could be expected from a first-time filmmaker. The dialogue in the film is so stilted. Like, no one talks like that, especially towards the end when Dante's girlfriend lectures him about, I don't remember what it was. It's like this. No one talks like that. It doesn't come off as all that good. The actors are obviously not the greatest actors in the world.
But I mean, they come off as real people. I mean, because he based this movie off of his real life of working behind that counter. And he basically just made a movie about all the conversations that he's had behind that counter.
Yes, but like again, some of the dialogue feels stilted, like it's too manufactured, and some of it doesn't come off as natural. Mm-hmm. Where the film, I feel, shines are when they have all these little asides, and it allows it to be ridiculous. Like when they talk about Return of the Jedi, that's a Star Wars, Jen, just so you know.
Yeah.
Or like the guy who is like checking all the eggs.
Yeah, the perfect dozen.
Right.
So like when they have these like little weird asides, I mean that's funny because it's so weird that it's funny. It's yeah. So my opinion has changed on it, which is kind of the reason why I haven't seen this movie in a while. I prefer Clerks 2 over the original Clerks, only because it's a much more polished, engaged, not emotional, but more. It's a deeper film than what first Clerks is.
I can see that because the story is more fleshed out. The characters are connected to the story more. And
the characters are deeper in the second one.
Right, and it's more of a movie. But I feel like that's not where I don't know. Because I obviously prefer Clerks 1. Well, not obviously. I prefer Clerks 1 over Clerks 2. Because, yes, Clerks 2 was, it was funnier. You got a lot more of those comedic elements like Jay and Silent Bob. And, just all these little side parts. But I felt like you kind of lost we're just two bored guys sitting behind a counter talking and interacting with whatever, interrupts our conversation.
One of the things about the conversations, and Jen, both you and Kyle brought this up, but from two different angles I'm going to go at, about how there's not much of a plot in the movie. It's not traditional that it's more of a character piece than anything else, with specifically surrounding Dante and how his completely slacker attitude is making him completely lost at life, where has two women he's trying to figure out which one's the best for him. In reality, he's the worst for both of them. Of course, one gets institutionalized, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, there is no plot to it, but if there was like one primary focus, it would have been, Dante and trying to cope with
where his life is gone.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that I think carries this film forward are all the conversations, and all the one-offs and things like that, which, granted, you can cut a lot of this stuff out and the film would be like 20 minutes long, and you really wouldn't miss anything in terms of development or character. But the thing that, like, where this film goes, it's that indie sentimentality, that it has just all these weird one-off conversations to crack jokes here and there.
Yeah. This reminds me of the movie Coffee and Cigarettes. Have you guys seen that one?
No.
Nick, have you heard of it?
Uh-uh.
Okay. Well, it's basically a movie in black and white. It's got a few bigger names. It's got like Bill Murray in there. But it's basically, three different scenes where people are just sitting around drinking coffee and cigarettes at different tables. I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was worth, and I felt like it had a lot of analogies to this, even though they're two separate entities. But if you guys haven't seen it, then there really isn't much to talk about.
I guess and I'm not necessarily against a piece of art that doesn't. I was complaining that it didn't have a plot. I'm not necessarily against things that don't have plots. I mean, I really like kind of like hangout TV shows, where it's like, okay, well, we're at a office, or we're in somebody's living room, and they're kind of I mean, a lot of Friends was them just kind of like hanging out together or something. I
also wanted to interrupt. Nick, you were talking about your DVR being completely full.
Close to it, yeah.
I am like shocked because I try to like record as much stuff as I can, and I pretty much record like every episode of Two Broke Girls, which
Why?
For some reason I like that show. For some reason.
We need to get you to a psychologist to find out what the hell's wrong with you.
We're going to come back to that Two Broke Girls thing. Like, that's just weird.
Well, I just want to say, I don't know if we just have like a huge
you
DVR.
And a bunch of 65-year-olds who watch the show.
Really? Is that an old person show?
It was on CBS. Everything on CBS is old people.
All right, well, I'll take that.
I mean,
and apparently I have a big DVR.
I don't know any young people who watched it.
Well, the Gorehound. Well, I guess that's subjective, whether I'm young or whatnot.
I guess, right. This changes my numbers,
All right. What did I just interrupt?
What I was saying was, I don't necessarily, think that everything has to have a plot, necessarily. But I guess part of it is it doesn't feel like he as a character, changes or grows or really has much of an arc, And I think that can be really frustrating from a watcher's perspective, where you're like, well, here are some things that are happening to him, but like at the end of the movie, do I think he's learned anything? I think he's learned nothing,
No, and I don't think that you need to learn anything in this story, because this is just a snapshot in the life of a clerk's life. That is all that this is. It's a documentation of what happens within the week of a clerk.
Right, and I guess that's okay. I guess it doesn't necessarily make for as satisfying as satisfying an experience as something that is a little bit more, that has more of a character arc. I think that can be really satisfying to see. There's certain kind of things that are tropes in media, and you can decry them, but people like them because they work emotionally. You know, it's something people like seeing. I saw the movie Manchester by the Sea this week, and as part of my Oscar thing, and that movie ends in a way that I did not expect it to end. And I would say one of the things I thought that was really interesting about that is that, like, you know, it definitely doesn't get the like happy ending that I would necessarily expect from Hollywood. So something like that can be, you know, really kind of refreshing and really make you think and, you know, reevaluate. But I'd say the character also grows during that movie, you know? I don't know. So that is something I find kind of difficult about the film as an experience.
See, I'm going to disagree with that. I think Dante does have a character arc. It's not as grand and epic. It's a little bit more subtle. But I think for a movie like this and the age and the snapshot that Kevin Smith was trying to talk about, I think it works. Because in the movie, Dante, all the troubles that Dante has, he blames everyone for his troubles except himself. He always is blaming Randall. He's always blaming the different customers and everything else. When in reality, he brings it all on himself, and he doesn't really realize that he is like this until he finally has that huge blow up with Randall at the end, where Randall kind of essentially just chews him out, and it kind of finally clicks with him. You're left with the idea that at the end of the movie, Dante's going to try to figure that stuff out. Is it as on the nose or on the head? Could have been written a little bit better? Certainly so. I will not argue that point at all. But I think it is there. It's just not as apparent or not as overt as it probably could have been.
You interpreted the ending as that he was going to try to, you know, maybe take a little bit more responsibility for his life at the end?
I think so, yeah. I think that because even at the beginning, like he started coming to the store. Like he didn't have to come in that day. He could have easily said no or not have picked up the phone. It's almost like he uses the job and uses all the bad things that happen connected to the job as a crutch for him not to actually progress forward. And you're left with a sort of, well, maybe I need to change, because I think there's a subtle indication of that, which is even made more depressing if you ever saw the original ending to the film before Kevin Smith changed it.
Are you talking about? So I watched the movie a few weeks ago with Thor. He was like, "Okay, I understand you hated that. Do you want to see the original ending?" And then he showed me. Is that the one where he gets shot?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
I don't think I've seen that.
It's
on YouTube or something.
I think it's on the DVD. Yeah.
Well, okay. It was on YouTube.
Oh well, what happens is, you know, it ends the same way. Randall says you're closed, and, you know, throws the towel at him, and then someone comes in, and Dante's like, "Oh, we're closed," and the guy robs and shoots him, leaving him there for dead. And another customer comes in, completely oblivious that the clerk is dead, asking for a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
And that's how the movie ends.
Yeah.
It was pretty satisfying.
Yeah. All right. I'll have to check that out.
Which that comedy then ultimately turns into a tragedy when he finally realizes, you know, I think I might turn my shit around. Boom, you're dead. Tough luck.
Yeah. Can we switch gears and address the purported sexism in this movie?
Absolutely. Let's go on this.
Okay. Maybe I've just seen this so much and I'm kind of oblivious to it, but state your case.
Okay, so I'd say there's really two female characters in the whole movie, right? There's original girlfriend, who her whole storyline is, I just found out that you've given a bunch of blowjobs and I'm very uncomfortable with it, and I'm going to I know we didn't have the word slut shame in 1994, but that's what he does. He's like, you know, how could you do this? I've only had I've had sex with 12 girls, but you've blown 36 guys, and how could you do that? And
in a row?
I think that's just because
the
Dante's an asshole.
Childish fucking thing, right? But it's also, but here's the problem, right? So here's why it's sexist. So a character having a sexist attitude is not necessarily evidence that the filmmaker is sexist, except that I'm not clear we ever really like, I'm not sure that the narrative pushes back on Dante on this, right? Like, he's like, wow, you're a big slut for doing this. And then at no point does he ever realize his mistake, or does at no point does,
So
does anyone else really tell him to like fuck off,
So I'm just assuming that he's an asshole, but there's really no evidence within the movie which states that he is.
There's no evidence that proves he's an asshole?
Right. I'm just thinking that he is.
Just like every line out of his mouth.
Right.
So then, okay, but you know what? I still could have forgiven the slut shaming, except then we get to girlfriend number 2, who comes back and has sex with a dead man. Like, I watched that scene, and then so great, you weren't moving at all. And I was like, first of all, said no woman ever. Like, I don't believe you've ever spoken to a woman and you wrote that line. And second of all, like, that is so gross, and it's like so weird and like women hating, and like
a convenience store bathroom.
Yeah, when she like has sex with a guy who died while on the toilet, and like I just like, what the fuck is that? Like, who writes that stuff into a movie besides someone who hates women? Like, I cannot deal with that.
Jen, we are going to have a few fun podcasts after this. Because
okay,
oh my God.
Let me let me touch on this.
Oh, absolutely, please do.
The first thing about the girlfriend, what was her name? Was that Veronica? Was Veronica the first girlfriend? Yeah, Veronica. The whole the sucking the 37 dicks.
Right.
You're not wrong on that. Like, Dante completely overreacted. They do reconcile later on, because I think doesn't he say something like that he did overreact and realize that he was kind of wrong for. Am I misremembering that? It has been a while since I've seen the movie. But in any event, with that, I think the film turns to Dante being the one in the wrong on that. It's meant to be ultimately it's meant to be a gag, because they have a couple of good lines with that, but. Because I think, now I remember, because Randall was the one who talked Dante into some sense. I think it happens off screen, but anyway, the second thing, I don't necessarily agree that what happens to Caitlin is ultimately sexist. Weird, gross, twisted, sure, but where? And this is just a general question. I don't expect there to be an answer necessarily, but where's the line where something can happen to a female character in a film or piece of fiction where it's meant to be weird or funny? Where's the line where it turns into sexism?
I mean, I think okay, here's what I'm going to say to that, because I think that's an interesting question, and I'm definitely not going to say I have the ultimate answer on this, but I would say something like that is like certainly crosses a line for me, at least, that that we could believe that she's, you'd have to be pretty stupid, I think, to have sex with a dead person and think that they're a live person. Like, it's just sort of weird and gross, and then he kind of makes it about him, I think the problem isn't that the gross thing happens. I think the problem is that the gross thing that happens to her isn't about her. It's about, like, oh no, like, I was going to get back with this perfect girl, and then she went and fucked a dead guy. Like, it's not that a gross thing happens. It's that the gross thing is framed as his problem rather than as, like, a terrible traumatic thing that happened to her. Like, she just kind of gets into the back of the ambulance, and he's like, well, best of luck to you. And, like, it's not, if something bad can happen to a female character, or something gross or something weird, but, like, if the narrative doesn't at all examine it from her perspective, I think that's where it can become a problem for me, is like,
it might just be because this is presumably from, two male store clerks' perspective. If Randall was a girl, it was, a girl and guy behind the counter, we might have more of that conversation, but it's only from, two people who are bored out of their minds behind the clerk's desk.
Well, sure, but but it's not a story where Randall accidentally has sex with a dead person, right? Like, you could write that, this isn't a documentary. I assume that, this did not happen, as much as this was based on his real life experiences or whatever. Pretty sure that one was fictionalized. So
I guess
you could.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say, so you could have that, given that that's fictionalized, you could either make the gross thing happen to the male character and then, cover it, or like I said, you show like actual sympathy for the female character, and, kind of have her perspective rather than keeping it strictly from the frame of his perspective. You don't have to do that, but then it's certainly going to be a lot easier to lob the charge of a sexist storyline at you.
Did we need to see it from her perspective, though?
I would say if you're going to do something really traumatic to a character, you kind of owe it to that character to not just make it a gross off gag, to like make it something. If you're really honestly like trying to say that this horrible thing happened, right? Like I think sex with dead people crosses a line that like, a lot of things wouldn't, something like, okay, so like there's that famous scene and There's Something About Mary, and something like that is kind of gross, but it's also probably not going to traumatize that character forever. Whereas something like this,
are you talking about when he zips up?
Oh no, I wasn't talking about that. It's talking about where she ends up with the hair gel.
Oh, okay.
Right, like that's kind of weird and humiliating, but it's also not going to like traumatize her for the rest of her life. So something like that, I'd say you don't need to go, you don't need to like follow her to the therapist's office afterward. But like something like this crosses so many like lines for me that like to just kind of end that storyline by sending her off and then like presumably Randall never dates her again. Because now she's like weird and gross and tainted. Like it's just.
Well, he does say he was going to continue to visit her to make sure she was doing all right towards the end of the movie.
I mean, that's good at least, but you could do more. Something like that is such a line in terms of both grossness and in terms of like cultural taboo. Pretty sure that's against every culture has a taboo about having sex with dead people.
Well, that's where you run into something like where they say if comedy doesn't try to be offensive, then it's not really comedy or something like that.
So inspirational, Nick.
I guess
I don't think that's the thing.
Well, no, I've heard something like that, like all comedy is going to be offensive to someone at some point or something like that. I can't remember the exact quote, but I don't know if we're going to agree on that perspective, Jen, about what happens to Caitlin and whether or not it's ultimately sexist or not. But I see where you're going. I just don't think I could buy into it. And I know I'm just sure the social network out there is going to be hashtag
Nick's an asshole.
Nick's an asshole. Boycott all new culture cast.
Sorry,
hashtag. You're part of the patriarchy.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
All right. Okay, let's move on to the music for the movie. What did you guys think of the score?
Fine. Very 90s.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest, I have no memory of it.
Okay.
It happened.
I really didn't care for the music the first few times around. It fit the movie, but I bought the soundtrack to it and tried to get into it, but I could not get into it and realized that it really doesn't, in my perspective, doesn't stand out on its own, where it really, fits well with the movie, but nowhere else. I would say
now,
that
since you're the one that remembers it, can you kind of explain what you think what are they going for, or what are the bands that you hear?
I know that the Jesus Lizard, Corrosion of Conformity, there were two other bands which were iconic, and I would never live.
Conformity is the most 90s band I've ever heard.
Yeah, all of them were very 90s. I would say that Chewbacca song is absolutely fantastic, and Berserker I actually listen to quite frequently. What else is on your guys' mind about this movie?
It's very interesting to me that it became so beloved. Do you think that had something to do? Because the other thing about it is it does feel very of a time period. Right? It feels
I think that
like it's very much that kind of like early 90s slacker aesthetic.
I think part of the success was that this unknown guy just put out this movie which was just so different, but yet so good, and it fit in so well with the time period that it was at. And I don't really know if there were other movies out at the time. I'm sure it wasn't the first, but I think it just hit a lot of a lot of the right notes at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would venture to say the popularity isn't because it's like well made, because I'm gonna go ahead and say I don't think it is, but I'd say it's probably because people love slacker heroes. People love the idea that yeah, well, I'm working this shitty minimum wage job too, but like that doesn't mean that I'm not contributing to the culture or otherwise invested. I think anytime you're kind of going after a underserved population like that, you're going to do well, at least with that group. And I think it probably hit a lot of people in the 90s who felt like maybe they weren't as successful as they'd like to be, kind of pre-millennial group of people who wanted to be successful and felt like they weren't. So I could definitely see why it would do well among like young people. That's my theory.
And I am young at heart, so.
You're young at heart. You work at a video store in Heart too, right?
No. I should say that this was the first movie that was starring Jay and Silent Bob, and this duo went on to star in Clerks 2, and then have their Jay and Silent Bob came first before.
Kevin Smith had a bunch of films. Clerks, then Mallrats, then Chasing Amy, Dogma, and then Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Right, and then it kind of went outside of the universe.
Then he stopped making like the interconnected films and started making other films which bombed horribly, either critically or financially. They were not very good.
I think that's a topic for a future podcast. But yeah, this was the start of Jay and Silent Bob. I think one of my favorite duos in movies today. Silent Bob is Kevin Smith, the director, and Jay is Jason Mewes. Pretty much not even acting in this movie. This is just who he is. He pretty much went, he started doing this because Kevin wanted him to. But I really like both of these guys, and both of them, if you weren't aware, both of them do Jay and Silent Bob Get Old podcast, where it's basically Kevin Smith is trying to keep Jason Mewes on the clear and to keep him from stop doing drugs and alcohol. And it's been like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years since he had any drugs. And it's kind of, you've been seeing him rise from this. And I listen to it quite frequently because I find it quite funny and entertaining, and a little bit inspirational to see where they've come, because since this movie came out and the podcast today, he's fallen back quite a bit, but he's also come back up a lot.
So I was gonna say, so in terms of you're kind of talking about how these are all interconnected. And I think that's really interesting. I could see how you could like these two characters. Does anybody like Dante? Like, I can't really feel like people. I have a hard time believing a lot of people would want to just go hang out with him for another couple of movies, or does he pop up again and again?
The interesting thing about what's typically called the View Askew universe is that each film features a completely different set of characters, with the exception of Jay and Silent Bob. The films might subtly reference the other films. Do you remember in the middle of the movie where they go and visit a funeral?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The events surrounding the build-up to that funeral are referenced by the characters of the movie Mallrats, which the main character was indirectly responsible for that character's death. And then in the movie Chasing Amy, it's the funeral and the death of that person is also briefly mentioned as well. So they reference events, but none of the characters, some of the actors reappear in different roles, but none of the characters come back until at the time, the then final movie, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where Jay and Silent Bob, before going on the adventure of their own, they kind of bounce through all the other characters, just stopping in and saying something. So the character of Dante does not appear again until like a 2-minute scene in movie number 5. And that's kind of all you see of him. And even then, he only interacts with Jay and Silent Bob. So I can imagine not a lot of people probably like him.
Yeah, I mean, part because there's not a whole lot. I mean, I'm sorry, Brian, if you're listening to this, but there's just not a whole lot of fun about him. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy you would want to hang out with ever because he's so, downtrodden and, sexist. Jenny, like that? See? I'm a feminist.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love it.
And when you're comparing them to Jay and Silent Bob, it's like you would much rather hang out with this, loud and obnoxious pair who's always getting into hijinks, other than, Dante, who's just, depressed all the time.
So now so you see Dante for 2 more minutes. He's not in Clerks 2. Is he the star of Clerks 2, or is he not really in that?
Oh yeah, the people in the people in Clerks 2, the 2 characters that return are the 4 characters, Jay and Silent Bob and Dante and Randall. So those characters come back.
But they're in a much different. Yes, they are the same characters, but they're in brighter spirits.
It's 10 years removed, so it's not like how when some sequels are years apart, it's like the character never changed or evolved in like the intervening years. These characters, while they're still,
fast food
the same
ones
ones
now.
Yeah, they're still the same ones at heart. They kind of have evolved from where they used to be. And honestly, the characters go through a much deeper emotional arc than they do in the first one, which make them more fully realized and more fully developed, and maybe a little bit more likable, arguably. But that's that.
Okay, I was just curious. For whatever reason, I remember when that movie came out, reading a review of it, and it said something about how the main character ends up with Rosario Dawson, and like having now seen Clerks 1, I'm retroactively mad that he ended up with Rosario Dawson.
You would be.
Absolutely.
They make it work in the movie.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Nick, what time is it?
9:09. I know.
9:10.
Is it trivia time?
It is trivia time.
Oh man, let's hear it.
It's trivia time.
So we all know Clerks had a TV show, right?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was like very short, and it had none of the original characters, right?
Well,
continue with your question.
Well, you might remember the animated series that was came on in early 2001. But in 1995, they actually tried making a live-action TV show. It didn't go anywhere. It was pretty awful, apparently. But interestingly enough, it didn't cast any of the original characters. Not even Kevin Smith was involved. But the character of Randall Graves was played by I can't word this in a question. I'm sorry. Do you guys remember Jim Brewer from SNL?
Yeah, Jim Brewer.
No.
I'm
gonna look him up.
He did the goat.
Yeah, and he was in the movie Half Baked with what's his name? But
that guy. Okay.
He was cast as Randall in the live-action TV series.
Really big bags under his eyes.
Yeah.
I think he's heard that one before.
Yeah, I'm glad we talked about this.
I remember in like 2000, 2001, all of a sudden Jim Brewer was everywhere.
Yeah.
And then by 2003, no one talked about him anymore.
His stand-up comedy on Comedy Central was just like on repeat.
It totally was. Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but yeah, he just totally disappeared, and no one's seen him since. Oh, he was in the movie Zookeeper. That's cool.
Was that with Kevin James?
Yeah. And Rosario Dawson. It all comes together.
Oh my god. Poor Rosario Dawson.
She deserves better, but that's what she gets for starring in a crappy thing called Rent.
Yeah, she's in Daredevil now, so.
Someday we'll have to have a conversation about Rent.
Rent?
And it'll just be me
Do we
yelling,
have to?
the older I get, the more I sympathize with Benny.
And if you can get through Kevin Smith theme, we will do that.
Yes! Mandatory Rent podcast.
I'm going to slit my wrists.
Okay, but to be fair, this was Gorehound's idea.
I know. Keep in mind, Gorehound also wants us to watch the movie Yoga Hosers. So
Once, it's a demand. Or do you just want me to be talking, just ranting for an hour?
Oh, I'll watch it.
Is it even on DVD yet?
It's on Netflix.
Just please don't make me cry, okay? It's my birthday month.
Well, maybe the movie will surprise me and I'll like it.
Just no.
Don't lie.
I can tell you, nobody liked it. Unless you like seeing Adam Brody without a shirt on for a total of like probably 3 minutes.
See, if it was 4 minutes, you would have had me. But 3, not enough.
I can tell you.
I know who Adam Brody is. Hold on. Look him up too.
Adam Brody is, I think, one of the 3 guys that the Graveyard Queen finds attractive.
Are you about to call her the Gorehound?
Hounded for the Gorehound.
I am not sure I've ever seen him in anything.
The OC is his...
I never watched that. But everything else I haven't seen that he's been in.
He was in the movie Thank You for Smoking.
Yeah. According to this, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Thank You for Smoking, In the Land of Women, Jennifer's Body, Cop Out, Scream 4. Okay, I did see Scream 4, but I don't remember him.
Yeah, Jennifer's Body was really good.
Life Partners and Sleeping with Other People. Oh, wait, no, I did see Sleeping with Other People. I don't know what he was.
He was sleeping with other people.
Fair enough.
All right, Nick, what are your closing thoughts, if any?
Clerks is a movie that really started off, it came out at the right point in time. Had this movie come out any earlier or any later, I don't think it would have gotten the traction it did. It was unique in the sense that it was bringing up topics and conversations, making pop culture an everyday thing, which people do in real life, and hadn't really done in the movies. Now you see it all over the place. So it was kind of unique at the time. I don't think it's a film that's held up as well over the years. I think a lot of the things that Jen brings up are extremely valid. If I had seen the film for the first time as an adult, I don't think I would have liked it the way I did when I was younger. But I think because I saw it at the right age, I have more of a nostalgic fondness for it. But I admit it's not an overly good movie.
Yeah, I can jump on that. But yeah, it was released at a very good time when it really clicked with a lot of people, and that might be one of the reasons that it clicks so well with me, because I like the 90s. I liked when this came out. It makes me feel like when I was young, even though no youngster should ever watch this film. This movie,
you were like 7 when this movie came out.
I obviously didn't see it right when it came out, but
yeah,
I saw it in the 90s. Or no, I wouldn't have, because I don't know. Regardless, it makes me feel good. Whether it's a good movie is questionable, but that's not really what I'm judging right now. I'm just judging, I like this movie, and that's it.
All right, here are my final thoughts. Nick says that it is technically a movie. Not positive I agree. Movies have plots. So, all right. Well, happy early birthday, Gorehound.
All right.
You've taken a whole month.
All right, let's close this bad boy out. I am the Gorehound.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Nick.
And we are the all-new Culture Cast. Catch you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Woo!
You've been listening to the all-new Culture Cast, one of Chicagoland's finest podcasts.
You're making me fall asleep to death.
Well, I guess there's not much we can do about that. In the meantime, check out our blog at znculturecast.wordpress.com. Send us an email at nick.culturecast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your feedback, comments, and requests. Follow us on social media. Theme music by bensound.com. This has been a Saltwater production, copyright 2017. Thanks for listening.